Hi, my name is Tatiana Sholokova. I am a photographer and author of the most understandable lessons on photo processing. In this video, I will tell you about the most understandable, convenient and simple system of retouching which is used by all the top retouchers of the world, and thanks to which you can process absolutely any photos at a high level. The first stage of processing is always the terms of reference. This is your understanding of what result you want to achieve in processing. Before processing, it's important to decide what your shot is about, what mood and styling it has. Determine what is superfluous in frame and what is the main thing. Also, it's worth to understand how you will work with colors and how you will give the frame a finished look. This is the main task of processing any frame, to reveal its strengths and remove unnecessary. Looking at this shot, we can define for ourselves the following tasks for processing. We see here that the white balance is completely wrong, so we will correct it. We will also fix the overshadowing. We realize that this shot is about makeup, so we need to have beautiful, perfect skin here. Also, there is an earring here, and we are going to make it more shiny and voluminous so that it draws more attention to itself. Also, the task can be related to certain colors. For example, we need to work with colors so that this shot will harmonize with your Instagram feed or feed and with this series of photos. Or we want to make a similar color to a reference. It's all possible, and the result of this stage will be the answer to the question what result we want to achieve during processing. The second stage of processing is preparation for retouching and color correction, or in other words, development. At this stage, we work in the programs Lightroom, Capture One, or Camera Raw and set such settings, which at the next stages will help us to perform retouching and color correction quickly and efficiently. The entire success of the subsequent processing depends on this stage. The first and most important step at this stage is to equalize the white balance. For example, here the white balance is wrong and needs to be corrected because the photo is too orange. We equalize the white balance so that the colors of all the elements become their real shades. The next step is to work with light and shadows. We need to avoid gaps in the shadows and overlighting, so that the texture in light and dark and mid-tones is clearly visible. So we work with exposure and the tools that are responsible for light and shadow. As a result, as you can see, the texture is now much more visible. Next, we can add saturation to bring out all the available colors. As a result, in the next steps, we will be more comfortable working with them. Next, I always remove excessive sharpening because when it's too strong, it interferes with retouching and can leave smudges behind. And an optional step for this stage, but quite possible, we can work with the shades of the primary colors. Usually, after this stage, the photo looks like this. As you can see, in each photo we have adjusted the white balance and worked with light and shadows, added some saturation and removed excess texture. The skin on the photo looks like we have already done some retouching. This will make it much easier for us to retouch in the future, and the color is now as pure as possible, so the color correction will be super high quality. So that's enough to move on to the next stage. The third step in processing is always retouching. I divide retouching into 3 steps. The first step is always cleaning. Here we remove small dots and spots with different tools. I use special methods so that no traces are left and the result is natural. After cleaning, the picture looks like this. Notice which spots have disappeared. The second step in retouching is always the dodge and burn retouching method. This method makes the skin smooth and preserves the texture 100%. When working with this method, we lighten dark spots and darken light spots, and due to this, light and shadow pattern is equalized and the skin looks smooth. And this is what the dodge and burn photo looks like. As you can see, the skin has become smooth, but the texture is not lost and the result is super natural, as if it was originally like this and there was no Photoshop processing. The third step is optional and we don't need it in this photo, so I will show you the third step in another photo. This is a frequency separation method. I have a special action for it. I recommend to use frequency separation not on the whole area on the photo, but only where we need to achieve soft smoothness or blending. For example, it works well in the case of background processing, blending makeup on the eyes or lips, as well as when working with creases on clothing. Here we can work with the lips, make them softer, and then apply the desired texture from another photo. This is the result, And this is what the photos usually look like after the third step. The fourth step in processing is always detailed color correction. Here we work with individual pieces of the photo, not with the whole area of the photo. This is relevant when you need to draw makeup details or volume, change the color or shade of individual objects, remove unnecessary color spots. For example, here now we can select the desired skin tone to be less gray and more colorful. To do this, I use the color panel in soft light blending mode. I color the skin and this is how it's changed. We can also add blush on the cheeks and this is the result. In this way, we can color anything. Then we can, for example, draw highlights. Notice how this area has changed. The highlights are more visible. It's not difficult, especially when you learn from my tutorials. In them I show you all the steps and tell you in detail about each step. You just need to repeat after me and be happy with the results. All these techniques and tools are suitable for any type of photo. For example, here we made the earring more shiny. This way you can make anything shiny. Also, when I show you how to make skin tone more colorful or draw blush, you should understand that this method is not only for skin. In Photoshop, each method and tool can have many uses. In this photo, we can work with volume. For this, I use one of the methods with channel mixing, and to make the earring more shiny, I use curves, and this is how the result looks like before and after at this stage. Also, we can detail color correction. We can deal with colored spots on the skin. This can be redness on the hands or bruises under the eyes, as well as gray spots after retouching deep shadows or bruises. And let's see how you can fight gray spots. I will show you one method. Being on an empty layer, I take the color next to the spot with a dropper and gently tint this area in color blending mode with a soft brush. Now we can see that this area has changed. It's not as gray as it was before. Plus, at this stage, we can work with shades of the primary colors. In this case, it's blue and green. Here our task is to find the most harmonious combination of shades. To do this, you need to have a theoretical knowledge of color and composition. To my lessons on processing, as a bonus, you will receive lectures on color and composition. And thanks to them, you will close this question for yourself forever. You can also recolor objects and change their color completely, plus control the brightness. And let's see how photos usually look like after the fourth stage of processing. The fifth stage in processing is always the final color correction. Here we give the frame a finished look by working with set and shadows, shades of primary colors and shades in light and dark areas. This is where you create that unusual color that you usually want to get from presets, but you don't actually need them, and you can do it yourself. We just need a few panels to work with. Solid color, curves, hue saturation, selective color, and sometimes a gradient map. But the most important panel is curves. If we only had it, we would also be able to do absolutely any color correction we want. And if you look at what any of the presets are made of, you will also see the modified curves, and that's what makes a beautiful, harmonious color. So it's worth learning them to understand how they work so that you can always achieve the desired color correction. In my tutorials, I talk as much as possible about this and more. Next moment, here I applied 3 adjustments to the final contrast in the curves. Then I wanted to work with shades of natural colors, and here are the changes we got. And the lighter areas, a pinkish tint appeared, and in the darker areas, a slightly green tint. Next, I used a gradient map to add a warmer shade. In the end, the result looks like this. At the final color correction stage, you can add presets if you want, and if the settings you made are not enough, you can add textures, grain effects, or sharpening. For example, adding sharpening can make the picture look like this. After adding noise, it can change like this. And here is the result after adding a scan texture. Here is an example of using my presets. All these can be done at the 5th step, and I absolutely don't recommend it at the beginning of processing. And an important point, I never pick up color by eye and I don't look for it. I just know from the beginning what color I want to get, and that's where my visual experience helps me. Plus, I just know how to use the tools in Photoshop to achieve my desired result. I quickly set all the right values and that's it, without a lot of blind searching. And you can learn how to do the same from my tutorials. You can also make a decision about color correction not by yourself, but based on some reference. For example, you have this picture and you want to repeat the color from this frame. What do you need for this? Firstly, your photo must be shot with the same light as your reference. So if you have got soft light from the window here, we have got to have the same light in our picture. And so I have picked up a picture like this. It's exactly the same light. In this case, the color recoloring will be as successful as possible. The process of repeating color correction is 3 steps. We need to look at the reference and analyze the degree of contrast, the shades of the primary colors and the shades in the light and dark areas, and just create similar contrast and hues on our photo. Once we understand how the tools in Photoshop work, we can easily replicate it, and we end up with a result that's as similar as possible, even though our photos are originally a completely different color. I also tell about in my lessons in maximum detail. The main thing is to repeat all the actions after me, and then you will understand everything. As you have already understood, the system of processing consists of 5 stages, and at each stage there are different methods and tools. This system is suitable for any photo. In my lessons on processing, I tell in maximum detail about each, and as a bonus you will have my lectures on color and composition, plus raw photos, actions, brushes and presets. How do you like this lesson? Did you get the hang of it? I remind you that if you want to learn how to process, learn all about retouching and color correction, become a professional, then be sure to take my clear and accessible lessons. Thanks to them, you will learn how to make fast and natural retouching and high quality and harmonized color correction. You will get all the knowledge you need to work as a photographer, as a retoucher, and you can be in demo all over the world. My lessons are super easy to understand with permanent access. That means you can watch them anytime you want and choose your own pace of learning. And if you have any questions in the process of learning, you can always write to me and I will help you with them, and in the end everything will be clear to you. Sometimes I do nice discounts on my lessons. Subscribe to my Instagram to be aware of the sales. Plus, I share many lessons there every day. It's also important to note that the retoucher is a global, in-demand and modern freelance profession. If you're interested in learning this profession and start earning money, my lessons will be perfect for this task. And in the description I left a guide for you on how retouchers can find clients. I hope this lesson was helpful for you. Thanks for your attention and be my best students. Bye bye.